Hi everyone. I thought today I would show you some of my postcard collection. I picked some of my favorites and they're grouped by theme. So for starters, a couple of photographs of Patti Smith. I live in New York. Patti lives in New York. I've seen her perform many, many times. Huge favorite of mine. But she's had the privilege of being photographed by two very, very gifted photographers, and the images of her have become part of her celebrity. So this first one is a very famous photograph, the cover of the album of Horses, photographed by Robert Mapplethorpe. And the look has become iconic. She said at the time that it was hastily photographed, and she was trying to imitate Sinatra when she threw the jacket over her shoulder. This photograph is less well known. I think it's equally striking. It's by Annie Leibovitz. And sort of typical, Leibovitz did an elaborate staging and costuming, whereas Mapplethorpe, it was just thrown together. He didn't have an assistant. They were in a rush. He was trying to capture some of the natural lighting before it faded. And they're both from the same period, by the way. These are both from the late 70s. These next two photographs, postcards I picked up at the London Museum of Transport. And I got a number of postcards there, fantastic reproductions of artwork involving that were used either to advertise the public transportation system or that are related to public transport. So these two are both by Cyril Power. This one is called Whence and Whither. It's from 1930. Just fantastic imagery, capturing the motion of people on the escalator and the curvature of the subway tube. If you've ever been in the London subways, Cyril Power has really captured the feel of them, the curves, the scale, the crowds, and this is a classic of the 1930s, this type of imagery. Many artists were doing the same sort of thing. Here's another image by the same artist, this time on the platform, and again, capturing the beautiful curves. Sorry about the reflection on the screen. There we go, that's better. And the London subway hasn't actually changed that much. It's very, very beautiful structure. As I said, I live in New York. Our subways are looking a bit worse, the worse for wear these days. Now, these next two are historical photographs. This first one blew me away when I found it. It's a photograph of Harriet Tubman as an old woman. I did not know that any photographs of her existed, and there's just something so amazing about seeing what she actually looked like, how she posed. It's an odd pose here. She's not looking at the camera, she's sort of looking down and off to the side. She's not smiling for the camera. A lot of people didn't smile in those days. This was taken, It doesn't say when it was taken, but she lived until 1913, and it looks like maybe this was around, the early 1900s. We think of Harriet Tubman as just this incredible, brave leader, and she just looks so unassuming here, almost like she's got things to do and she just wants to get the photograph out of the way. I don't know who those other people are. They're not identified in the photograph. The photographer is not identified either, but this is from the Sophie Smith collection at Smith College, the original. This is another woman from history who is famous not so much for who she was, but for what she inspired. This is Alice Little, the girl who was the inspiration and sort of raison d'etre for Alice in Wonderland. The photograph is by Julia Cameron, who was a famous photographer at the time. I think it's fantastic. The way she's posed in the greenery, her pose, her expression. Oddly, this girl, 1872, I don't know how old she was at the time. She looks like a teenager, an adolescent. She looks brave the way you imagine Alice would have been in her adventures. This is one of several photographs that I like to keep on display. I just never get tired of looking at her pose and her expression. The next two are works of art. First one I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's one of several versions of Edvard Munch's The Scream. Munch is one of my favorite artists, and I actually I wrote a short story based on one of his paintings. Unfortunately, this work, like many of Frida Kahlo's works, has sort of been ruined for me by the way it's been just like so commodified and used in absolutely everything in popular culture, but it's still a phenomenal, powerful image. And very relevant. The second painting you probably have not seen. It's by an anonymous artist. Believe it or not, this hangs in the Louvre. It looks a little bit like pornography. And it's called Two Sisters. They're bathing in a tub, and one of them is tweaking the other one's nipple. I doubt that they're sisters. Interestingly, in the 20th century, two young women recreated this painting as a photograph. I have it somewhere, but I can't find it. But it's very funny. The next two are old postcards, actual vintage postcards. This one is from somewhere in Cyprus. It's just sort of a lovely tinted. I'm not sure what the type of art is, if this is a tinted photograph or some type of lithograph, but it's just a lovely country scene. But what's really special about this is the back. This is an actual postcard that was sent in 1934. It is written in what I believe is Greek. I can't read it. It's just a couple of lines addressed to a woman who lives on West 40th Street right here in New York. And I just thought this was very special. I collect antiques, and what is compelling to me about them is this connection to the past. It's like a little time machine, and just being able to hold something in your hand that was mailed by someone 80 years ago. It's just incredible. This postcard is from 1945, a series called Glamour Girls. And as you can see, this is also on the risque side. It was probably very risque for the time. Not the sort of thing you would display in your home. I have a number of these. Next, I have two pieces of art associated with modern music. The first is the cover from Joy Division's album Unknown Pleasures. This is a very famous image. Many of you have probably seen it. It's just, from a graphic perspective, it's just fantastic. It became iconic. Joy Division's sound was very distinctive and unusual, and their artwork was as well. I've never looked this up. I don't know what the artist was aiming for, and actually I don't know the name of the artist. But it always looked to me both like the depiction of sound waves when you're using a recording program and you can see the peaks of the sound, as well as, of course, a landscape. Fantastic album, by the way. This is a less famous image. It is a concert poster for The Who from 1976. I believe this was in Germany, Munich. This to me is unusual because it has nothing to do with The Who. It's as if the artist almost wasn't familiar with their work, or I have no idea why this image was chosen. And I'm a big fan of The Who. I have a lot of their live recordings, the memorabilia, and this is like nothing else associated with their work. I'm curious as to what they thought of it. I'm sure they had zero control over it. It would be interesting to hear what they thought of the various ways that their concerts were promoted at the time. The original of this is insanely expensive. It is one of the more expensive pieces of rock memorabilia available. I have a less expensive original of related to a Who concert, which I treasure. And the last three are photographs, just various photographs that I thought were striking. This first one was taken in 1979 by Brian Griffin. It's called Rocket Man, and it shows an image of a man on a beach. He's just launched a rocket, and the image is striking to me for a number of reasons. One is, if you didn't know the title, You would almost think that lightning had just struck in front of him. 2 is he's wearing a suit, which I just find very strange for someone who's engaged in launching a rocket. And the way the trajectory comes up out of his body, from the ground right in front of him in a straight line, I'm sure it was fortuitous, but it's really remarkable. It looks like he's part of the trajectory. And his pose also looks as though he is about to take off. Fantastic image captured at a lot of great photographs, just the right combination of timing and having a good eye, but also being in the right place at the right time. This one, very different mood. It's not even particularly artful. There's just something about this image and this boy's expression that I just never get tired of. It's from 1988. The artist is Ronald Hamega. I cannot read the title of the photograph because it is in Dutch. But again, an image that I just don't get tired of. And this last one is from World War II. The photographer is, I'm going to mispronounce it, it's Russian. I'll just say it in English. Georgy, like Georgy Lipskerov, Lipskerov. It's titled Russian Soldiers in Berlin, 1945. Very beautiful image. Soldiers asleep in what I presume is a foxhole, with the puppy curled up between them. And again, it's that timing, it's having an eye. The puppy, just the vulnerability of the soldiers. The puppy, it really, without the puppy, this photograph would be nothing. It'd just be soldiers sleeping. But it just kind of gives you an insight into what their lives were like, how frightened they must have been. What a great joy it must have been for them to have a puppy. You wonder what a puppy was doing there. Maybe they found it. Or just again, talking about antiques, just that window into another time that you really only get by actually looking at the relics of that time. Almost transports you there. So that's what I wanted to show you today. I hope that you enjoyed that. I'm continuing my exploration of making ASMR videos. I would love to get any feedback that you have for me. Bye-bye.